Do you really understand risk? When assessors evaluate your risk management program, they're looking for one key thing. Do you understand how threats and vulnerabilities come together to cause damage to an organization? In this video, we'll learn 4 building blocks of risk: threats, vulnerabilities, likelihood, and impact. And we'll talk about how they work together to determine your overall risk level. We'll use hurricane risk as an example. The first building block is a threat. A threat is something bad that could happen. So in our example, a hurricane would be a threat. During CMMC assessments, I've noticed that organizations tend to concentrate on cyber threats. But a threat is really anything that could cause harm to your organization or its data. Besides cyber threats, this includes insider threats, equipment disasters, failures, human errors, and of course natural disasters like the hurricane. The second building block is a vulnerability. A vulnerability is a weakness that could exploit a threat. So using our natural disaster example, the hurricane is a threat. A vulnerability could be a building that's not built to withstand hurricanes. From a cybersecurity standpoint, it could be a missing patch or an employee who's not been trained, an open port, or maybe even an outdated policy. The next building block is likelihood. Likelihood is the probability that a threat, like a hurricane, will exploit a vulnerability, like a building that's not designed to withstand hurricanes. We don't guess. It's assessed using reasonable evidence. For example, likelihood of a hurricane in California is very low. It does happen, so it is there, but the likelihood is low. The likelihood of a hurricane in North Carolina, of course, would be higher, and even higher still would be the likelihood of a hurricane in Florida. So, likelihood that an intruder will enter a big tech data center, that might be a low risk from a cybersecurity standpoint. A higher risk might be that an employee has a password that they've written on a sticky note and there's no multi-factor authentication, and then an intruder gets access to the sticky note. The last component of risk is impact. Impact is the harm that would occur if the risk was actually actualized. So for example, if a hurricane struck that vulnerable building, how much would it cost? In CMMC, we measure impact in terms of confidentiality and integrity of data. And other cybersecurities measure availability as well. Impact also measures consequences to mission, functions of the organization, its image, and its reputation. As a matter of fact, it is required by CMMC to address all of these types of risks, not just technical cybersecurity risks. So let's put all of this together. Risk is calculated by combining the likelihood with the impact. A vulnerability that is likely to be exploited and causes severe harm represents a high risk. So an example might be a hurricane striking a building that's not up to code in southern Florida. On the reverse side of things, an unlikely risk is one that has low impact and low probability, low likelihood of occurrence. So a very well-constructed building in Southern California would have a low hurricane risk. And of course, there's a whole continuum in between these two. Take a look at this chart. This is a chart that you see very often in risk management frameworks. As an assessor, I expect to see this chart in your policies and procedures, and I expect to see you using this chart as you go through your risk management exercises. Let's just summarize the 4 building blocks of risk that we've talked about today: threat, vulnerability, likelihood, and impact. These form the foundation of every risk decision that your organization will make. In the next video, we'll see how these fit together into a larger NIST risk management life cycle and what CMMC expects organizations to use over time for risk.